Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Permissionless 4 here in Brooklyn. You got to pinch yourself to think that we're doing a crypto conference in Brooklyn in 2025. You're the mayor of this city. Can you tell them to turn the AC down?
No, we like it. We like it a little cool. You know, the doors open. This is an amazing space that we're in this industry city. It has transformed over the years, and it is really part of the rebirth and growth of this entire city. So this was the perfect place to pick to do this.
Yeah, so every superhero has a good origin story. You're from Brownsville, not so far from here. Maybe you could just give us the backstory of how you went from a kid in Brownsville to being the mayor of New York City.
Well, born in Brownsville, you know, I used to think that every night you're supposed to sleep in a different place because we didn't have permanent housing, so we would go from cousins to aunties to what have you, moving over. Eventually, Mom saved up enough money to move to South Jamaica, Queens, and from there, that was a real stabilized community, you know, low income, but it was stable. I suffered from dyslexia, undiagnosed, so I used to think that I was a dumb student. I walk in the classroom every day, they have dumb student on the back of the chair. And, you know, kids are cute, but they can be cruel, you know, and if I read that day, they will mimic me throughout the entire day, and it was until I got into college that I heard a young girl listening to a documentary on dyslexia, that when I heard it, I realized I was not dumb, I was dyslexic. And I went from the D list to being on the dean list throughout my entire career. And then I went into law enforcement, state senate, first person of color to be the borough president of Brooklyn, and now the mayor of the city of New York, second mayor of color after my mentor, David Dinkins, was the mayor.
So somewhere along that path, you found crypto and Bitcoin, which is obviously what we're here to talk about today. Maybe you could tell us why you first got interested in it, when you first heard about it, what the story is behind that.
Well, the role of a mayor, particularly in a city as large as New York, is that you must be substantive and symbolic. And the substance is, of course, bringing down crime, educating children, building housing, all that good stuff. But the symbolism is just as important. We're witnessing an evolution in how we're paying for goods and services. And New York needs to lead the way. This is the financial capital of the globe, and we must be part of that evolution. And while I was on the campaign trail, I had the opportunity to meet Brock Pierce, who talked about Bitcoin and how this new form of exchange for goods and services is something we need to embrace. I started to do my reading, and I was blown away of how important and how innovative this industry is, and how we moved it out of New York. We criminalized, we targeted. So many investors were under investigation. We just really turned against an entire industry. And I said no to that. So when I became mayor, I took my first 3 paychecks in Bitcoin and still have them until today.
That was my next question. That was my next question. You still holding?
And people laughed at me. But I say, who's laughing now?
That was my next question for the audience. How many of you had people tell you were crazy when you first told them that you were into Bitcoin and crypto? Show of hands. I'm surprised. Wow, most of you must have gotten in last year or something, because when I got in 2016, it was like that. And I remember you saying, I'm taking my first 3 paychecks in Bitcoin and Ethereum, I believe.
Yes, exactly.
Right, we forget that part. At the last conference we were at, you're not allowed to say Ethereum on stage. You can only say Bitcoin. Here we can say Ethereum. And you're still holding it today. So obviously, it was also a contentious time in the city and in the state for the crypto industry, as you said. Interestingly, today is primary day.
Yes.
One of your likely opponents is former Governor Cuomo, the man behind the Bit license.
Yes, no, so true. His superintendent of finance, which was interesting, he just sort of dismantled and destroyed the industry, and then went out and joined a company. His former superintendent joined a company that basically benefited from the destruction of the industry. And clearly, this is the only industry, when you do an analysis of the history of this country, this is the only industry when there was an intentional action to make sure this industry does not grow. In New York specifically, and we have to turn that around. And so I thought the actions of the former governor, they were wrong. I think they were misguided. And it just pushed this industry into the shadows. And many people left the city. A lot of people went to other countries because they did not want to go through that level of harassment. And we've harassed the hell out of this industry. And so he pushed it out of New York State. I'm in Brooklyn today to say I'm welcoming it back in New York City. We need to be the Bitcoin capital of the entire globe.
So how do you accomplish that when you obviously have cities around the world that have wooed the industry? Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, of course, even cities in the United States. How do you bring the industry back, and how do you, at the city level, fight what's happening at the state level? Because I would imagine that you can only do so much in the city.
Well, I think there's a number of things that we could do. Number one, we're going to create a digital asset council where we're going to bring in those leaders from across the globe and be a part of this council so that we can navigate how do we start building from the ground up. And I believe the community, folks who are here in this room, don't realize their power. You know, these laws that are made on the state level, we need a strong advocacy group to go to Albany, walk the halls of Albany, speak with the local electeds, the state senators, the assembly persons, and the governor's office to explain this industry, because many people don't understand the industry. And third, we need to build out the pipeline. We're introducing this into our school system where our young people are going to start embracing what blockchain represents and how the technology is important for data protection of our records. We're going to explain Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and the whole universe. And then we're going to put into practical practices, like just as I am getting my paycheck in Bitcoins, we're also going to show how you can pay your local utility bills, how you can pay summers if you have those, and other ways that you can pay for city services. And lastly, there's a real investment for those. This is an international city. You know, here in Brooklyn, 40% of the people speak a language other than English at home. When I was in Puebla, Mexico, or Ecuador, or other parts, they're sending money back to their family members. And by sending that money back, the amount of money they're paying to all of these top companies, they're losing billions of dollars. So once people see the financial benefits and how it impacts them in their pockets, they're going to push the legislation forward in a real way.
I mean, we've obviously seen a huge sea change at the national level, at the federal level, for how this industry is viewed, how the asset class is viewed. Does that give you tailwinds in the city? Have you noticed a change being mayor of New York City since things have changed so much on the national level on what you can speak about, what you can likely push through, what you can propose? Because it seems wildly politically unpopular to be anti-crypto at this point.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And you look, I think in the first 120 days, the number of bills that went through the federal level to deal with this issue is extremely impressive. And now you're seeing cities picking up and states picking up the same energy. And it's difficult now to see what we witnessed before, where it was real harassment on those if you were in this industries. And I'm pretty sure folks in this room could all give you horror stories of what they went through and being fearful that watching your investment evaporate overnight based on just the harassment that this industry experienced. And when you think about it, we went from paying for goods and services using seashells, then we evolved to go to coins and the paper dollars, to credit card, to other forms of paying for goods and services now. You know, my son doesn't even use credit cards. He said, "Dad, just cash at me." So the evolution has always been there. People have gotten in the way of that evolution, and there's always been folks like the people in this room that were willing to push and say that we're going to not be afraid of change. Change is fearful. People enjoy inertia. They want to have things remain the same. And there are many financial industries that realize that this is a freedom to be able to manage your assets in the capacity that we're doing.
I mean, this is the global financial capital of the world. You would have to imagine that the biggest crypto companies one day are on Wall Street next to the Goldman Sachs and the JP Morgans and the Blackrocks, who have obviously adopted our asset class.
And many left. They fled because it was unfair. I never thought I would be quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger, but they'll be back.
Yeah, yes, they will. And are they coming back? So talk about, obviously you had a summit last month, right? So this is something that's actively in the works right now, discussing with the industry, the policies that you just articulated. Are they starting to come back? Are those meetings changing?
Good energy. We had about 200-300 people at Gracie Mansion, where we had our crypto summit and some great speakers that came in to look at what we were doing. We had Nick Spano, who was a real giant in this industry of what Nick did years ago before he had to leave. So the energy was great at Gracie Mansion, and you're seeing a lot of companies are realizing that there's a possibility here in the city, and we're going to make it as easy as possible for them to come back and really open their industries right here.
Yeah, and obviously this industry is now starting to build the full breadth of financial services that we see with legacy companies. In Vegas, you kind of made waves by talking about a bit bond.
Yes.
So maybe we can dive into what the bit bond would look like, why that's important, and how that would work in New York City.
No, we have a great deal of, thank you very much. We have a great deal of financial instruments that allow those who are investing everything from tax-free bonds to other bonds. We want to examine how do we have a bit bond here to allow those who want to use Bitcoins to do that same level of investments. Our team is examining now, my OMB, my budget director, to see the formation of that. The current controller is against it, but we think there are ways we can do it to circumvent him, because it's going to take a lot of creativity to bring other people forward in this direction. Again, the lack of education and understanding of what this universe looks like is making it fearful for people to move forward. Because what we have done, we have identified those cases where there was some form of fraud or abuse, as though we don't have fraud and abuse in stocks, and currency, and credit. But we've highlighted any misstep, and we use it as a way of saying, see, this is why the industry should not grow. We have to move past that. And so what we want to do here in the city is to examine the potentiality of a bit bond, and also continue to expand the industry here in the city at the same time.
What's the timeline for something like that in your mind? It seems like now is the time to strike, because there's...
Got to move quickly. Got to move while the iron is hot. We got, as you stated, there's a lot of support on the national level, and so the opportunities are here. But I cannot say it enough. A lot of the movement that we're going to be able to do is going to come from audiences like this. You are going to drive this. The energy and how fast we can move. When you have an executive, such as the mayor of the city, who's embracing it, the executive must meet those who are in the industry on the grassroots level, and together we can make it happen. It's not going to be just if the mayor is advocating for it, it's going to be the mayor and the combination of those who are in the industry. That's how change happens in cities and in this country. It comes from the combination of the leader on the top being embraced by those who are on the grassroots level. So it's imperative. We saw it in this last presidential race. The Bitcoin, the community, the crypto community was extremely present. They had an agenda. They wanted to push this agenda forward, and they were very present. They need to do that across the entire country to make sure that their voices are heard.
They're talking about that grassroots groundswell from the industry itself. What about from the people of New York? Because I know that they still don't have access that almost every other state does. A lot of our favorite exchanges, a lot of our favorite platforms, decentralized finance. New York, still, you can go and be blocked from signing up to the most simple thing. So how can the people really help push that agenda, and not just the industry and the money that's behind it?
Right, and you if you think about it, people need to identify how does this help me. So we have a large Caribbean, South America, Central America population, as I was sharing, that's sending money back to their home country, to support their family members. Once they identify how much money they're saving by sending money using Bitcoins, that's going to be the grassroots and the on-the-ground efforts. We have to expand the knowledge of this industry. For far too long, it has been a niche industry where only a few understood the benefits of it. Now that we're going into our schools, we're teaching our children of this entire industry, and I'm bringing together all of my council generals so that they can encourage their residents of their countries that are here on the benefits of it. The more we do education on the bottom, that's going to build the groundswell. And we have not done that. Right. Those of us who are in the industry, many people sit in the room and they feel uncomfortable by engaging in the conversation because no one wants to feel dumb. And they feel as though, I don't know what they're talking about, it's too complicated for us. We're now bringing together pastors, clergy leaders, faith leaders, rabbis. We're going to start a real conversation on how this benefits everyday working class people in the city.
And beyond, obviously, the Bitbond or just holding Bitcoin, you outlined a number of ways that the technology can be utilized to benefit systems in the city. If someone pays their taxes or their parking tickets and all those things in Bitcoin, does that mean that we can get the city to hold it?
We would love to do that, But it's also using this whole technology, our blockchains. There's no reason we cannot have our birth certificates, our death certificates, our liens. It is so much easier to use this technology of even blockchain that we have not embraced at the level that we should be embracing, and that's our goal of showing how this technology moves us forward.
So what other things can the industry people here specifically do to help support these efforts?
First of all, feel empowered. This is a very sophisticated, knowledgeable industry. They should know who their state senator is. They should know who their assembly person is. If they're here in New York or outside of the city, you still should know that. They should know who their congressional person is. That's the starting point. And then they should communicate with them. Let them know how important this industry is, how it can grow. We're talking about jobs. We're talking about building an economy. They shouldn't be silenced. This industry has existed in the shadows for too long. The national government is embracing the concept and understanding of it. Now the local cities are doing so as well. All of these mayor organizations, you have the National Mayors Association, you have the Local Mayors Association, you have the local cities and counties. This industry, just as they understand how to make the right investment in Bitcoins, they should understand how to make the right investment in politics. A lot of people who are in industries of this magnitude or in business, the attitude is, well, I'm just going to run my business and I'm going to get into politics. Politics is going to be in your business if you like it or not. And we saw that 10 years ago when the former governor and his head of our financial entity, how they made the determination of dealing with our bid licenses. It destroyed the industry. So if we're not in politics, politics is going to be in us.
So I know we only got a couple minutes left. Let's live in a perfect world. We get rid of the bit license. You get basically all of the regulatory and legislative clarity that you want. You can do whatever you want. What does this industry in New York City look like by the end of your next term?
Clearly, we're going to see a real evolution in the next few years, 1 or 2 years. You're going to see a real evolution. We have a governor's race coming up, and this entire industry should be involved in that race to put your platforms. When people run for office, they hear the platforms of the advocates. And advocates do things, everything from housing advocacy to healthcare to education advocacy. This needs to be on the agenda for the upcoming gubernatorial, state, and local elected races for Albany. If this is on the agenda, it will engage in a conversation. That will help my role here in the city. We have to get rid of the bit licenses. If we don't get rid of the bit licenses, it's going to be in the way of the real growth of this industry. And I think this is the moment to do so. There's a door that's open, and we need to take advantage of that. If we accomplish that task, a very clear mission, we accomplish that task, we're going to see this industry take off in the financial capital of the globe.
Well, thank you so much for everything you've done for this city and for our industry. And everybody, please, a huge round of applause for the Bitcoin mayor of New York City, Eric Adams.